The first place Pistons need some shooting, and I found them a shooter, Michael Porter Jr. You like that move?
I think that's a good fit. I think he does what he's doing this year is exactly what they need. But I'm curious how they land him, in such a trade.
Right. So here's the proposal I came up with for the Pistons and Michael Porter Jr. Detroit would send Tobias Harris, obviously just large expiring salary. Jaden Ivey as the young kind of piece going to Brooklyn, a 2028 first and a protected 2031 swap. MPJ is having a great year. He's a dynamic scorer. He's only at 27, 28. He's still young. He's had the back issues though. The way I look at this is I know people are saying Brooklyn wants a haul for MPJ. Look, he's got a year and a half left on his contract. Unless the Nets plan on competing next year, Porter Jr. is worth more to them as a trade chip than he is as a building block, but they also still have to be realistic about it in terms of what they can get for him over the next year and a half before he becomes a free agent. If they can get, a high upside youngster that maybe just needs a change of scenery like Jaden Ivey, who hasn't been the same since the injuries, and 2 first-round picks, even if they're protected, I think that's something they should consider. And then from Detroit, I mentioned it, they badly need shooting. It's like the one kind of potentially fatal flaw that when you look at them and you could ask, okay, why won't this first-place team actually win the East? I would point to the shooting. So out of teams in top 6 seeds right now, only San Antonio and Toronto shoot worse from 3. And from a 3-point attempt rate perspective, they're 27th. You're not winning a championship like that or competing for one in 2026 in the NBA.
No, and their half-court offense, too, has kind of it's really been up and down this season. And I think if we're just looking straight up at talent, MPJ is like a perfect fit in Detroit. Does everything that they need him to do. I think he's on that sort of year and a half. He's got a year left after this on his contract. I think that's great for them as they kind of evaluate what their next moves are. This is an interesting one because looking at the proposal, I think my knee-jerk reaction is to say the Pistons are giving up Ivy and what we'll call a first-round pick and a half kind of. That feels like a lot.
I hear you.
But on the other side, if you're the Nets with the way he's been playing, he's been top 25 NBA player
borderline
this year.
All-star.
Absolutely. I'm not giving him up unless I'm getting a young player and a pick. So this is kind of a fascinating one. I think if I'm Detroit, I think I'm looking at 2 things. I think my main thing is if I'm Detroit, I'm not giving up any of these assets I have because I've got all my picks. I've got a ton of young players. I'm not giving up any of these guys until I know whether or not I can make a big fish move to that next, MPJ is kind of here, he's, mid-tier, mid-upper level tier. I'm thinking, the next star to become available, they're uniquely positioned to make that trade. Yeah. So my question to myself is kind of, am I giving up too much here to get MPJ? Does that hurt my chances later on? Maybe you think it does, maybe you don't. Ivy would be, I think, the toughest part of this trade for me to give up on. Like you said, he hasn't been playing well since the injury, but, it's only really been one season. He was pretty solid last year. Yeah. I think he's a guy who's got a lot of potential. I like him a lot. So I don't, it depends on how much Detroit wants to contend now and how they see MPJ fitting there.
Yeah, and they, to me, are the classic team where, they're ahead of schedule and they don't have to rush this. They can very easily just go into the playoffs. Even though they're the 1 seed, no one's going to think of it as, some shocking disappointment if they lose in the conference finals or even if they lose a hard-fought second-round series to, a more veteran lower seed like Cleveland or something. So I don't think they have to rush it. I think they can just roll this lineup out there in the playoffs for the most part, see what comes of it, and then adjust after that. To your point, they can make a bigger splash even in the summer rather than making this kind of half measure. Now, the one thing I will add, though, if MPJ doesn't float your boat, Trey Murphy is out there. Now, New Orleans has reportedly said none of their guys are getting moved, even though they're perpetually unintentionally rebuilding. But Trey Murphy is 2 years younger than MPJ. He makes about $13 million a year less, but his contract runs a year or 2 longer. That, to me, is one where, he better fits Detroit's timeline. He's a better two-way player than MPJ. You don't get as much defensive drop-off. He can still shoot it the way he can, still has dynamic a scorer, and he's kind of, locked into your core longer term. He just fits better. The thing with that is I think you would still need Ivy.
Yeah.
Trey Murphy doesn't make as much, so you could probably get away with Ivy and Karis LeVert instead of Harris. But given everything I just said about Trey Murphy, younger, cheaper, under longer term team control, would New Orleans not want more draft pick compensation?
That's the thing. I like that. Like Trey Murphy, I'm like, if
I
I
shoulda
can
led
get
with
that
that.
guy on my team, I'm getting that guy on my team. He also doesn't say wild shit in public yet, at least. So
Fair
that's
enough,
like another pro.
Higher IQ.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what we'll call it. I love that. I would do that in a heartbeat. I think probably this package doesn't get it done. Like I think Ivy, like I think you're probably minimum 3 first-round picks because
Would you do it? Would you do Ivy and 3 first-round picks if you're Detroit for Trey Murphy?
I think yes, because Detroit has a ton of picks. That might take you out of the running of like going to get like a Giannis or something like that. But I think like the upgrade you would get from just putting Trey Murphy on this team, like, you know, they could make the finals this year. Like what he brings in the same way that MPJ would bring, you know, is everything they need. You know, it theoretically fills those holes. You know, he's like a 3-and-D wing, like he's going to shoot the ball well. You know, he's going to improve their offense. I would make that trade because that would make us better now and in the long run.
Yeah.
And he's also, you know, if that for whatever reason doesn't work out, like that's an extremely tradable guy that you add to this team. And if
on a good contract,
on a great contract, if you can do it for 3 first-round picks, you know, try to obviously non-sequential first-round picks, like you still have all of your other first-round picks if you're Detroit, which you could make another upgrade. And this is a guy who I think potentially could still keep getting better.
I think it's interesting that you said if they made that move, they could make the finals. Because, again, we're talking about the first-place team in the East.
Yeah.
So Detroit's counter would be like, well, we think we can make the finals without having to make any of these moves or give up these picks. I think the difference, and I think you'd agree with me, is that there's a difference between kind of like, oh, they made the finals in this weird wide open East year the way that the early 2000s Nets did, or the early 2000s, you know, insert team, whatever, like Pacers did, whatever.
Yeah, Magic.
But we never actually thought that team had a chance of winning the title, right? And like, if the Pistons, as presently constructed, were to make the finals, all the credit to them, all the power to them, no one would give them a fighting chance in hell, including me, of winning a championship. If they made a move for an MPJ or a Trey Murphy, I would give them at least a puncher's chance.
Absolutely. And I think the Trey Murphy thing is huge because it's like, I give them a puncher's chance this year. And then I'm like, okay, like this is a team I'm worried about going forward. The MPJ thing is like, you're really just gambling against another injury. You know, I know it's shitty to say, but it's like, this is a dude who was like #1 pick caliber talent who just got hurt. And I mean, the back injury is so severe, but he's also got a foot injury. You know, it's like there's a huge difference between those two trades, right? MPJ maybe gives them a puncher's chance now, and I would say puncher's chance for sure.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, I don't know what that move is. Whereas with Trey Murphy, that's a guy you can grow with, in my opinion.
Yeah, should have led with that. Should have led with that.